So what do we find? When we trace maternal ancestry, we find African results 92% of the time. When it's not African, it tends to be European, and then 2% of the time it's Native American. So we really don't find Native American ancestry as much as our history would suggest. Now, I have to say that our population is kind of skewed, because if you know your maternal line is Native American, you're not going to take our test anyway, because you already know that ancestry. Likewise, if you know your ancestry is European, you're not going to take our test because you already know the answer. Our test answers the question, where am I from? And so if you know the answer, you don't want to take the test. Paternally, it looks very different. We find African ancestry 65% of the time, and most of the rest of it, 34% of the time, is European. Is anybody surprised by that? Would you like me to explain how that could happen? Yes. If a Portuguese slave trader fathers a son with a Nigerian woman, is the son going to be black or white? He's going to be, is he going to work for the plantation, or is he going to live in the house? He's going to work, right? So he's going to be considered black or mulatto. And then if he has a black wife and they have a son, he's going to be black, right? And their son's going to be black, and his son's going to be black. But the Y chromosome goes back to Portugal. And so our hypothesis is that with the extent to which slaveholders and slave traders fathered children with African women, that's why we see so much European ancestry on the paternal line. That wasn't happening the other way around. It wasn't white women having children with the same frequency with enslaved African men. Those women didn't live, probably. Seriously, I mean. Now, the countries we find most often are Nigeria and Cameroon. And then after that would be Guinea-Bissau and Sierra Leone, and then Ghana. But we found results in 27 different countries from all over the continent. So we have found Kenya, we have found Sudan, Egypt, South Africa, a variety of countries. How reliable is this? How accurate is it? That's a question you all should be asking. So let me answer it. Reliability depends in large part on the comprehensiveness of the database. If you are comparing someone's yellow dot, their mitochondrial DNA, or their Y chromosome to a small pool of data, you're not going to get closely related lineages. But if you look at a large number of genetic data, you're going to find much more closely related information. And our sampling is consistent with the historical record. Now, 85% of those sequences that we look at, those yellow dots, are identical. That means every letter in your sequence matches every single letter in the sequence that we find a match for. When it's not identical, Dr. Kittles uses a statistical analysis to look at likelihood, and the standard margin of error is very tight at plus or minus 5%. There are some limitations to this work. I'm sure you've heard criticisms, and I'm happy to take any questions, but we're not intending to tell you all of who you are. We're looking at one line of your family tree, just like Dr. Day showed, and just like the genealogist showed. You start with one line. You start with you decide whether to go to your mother or your father. And then you go to the next one, her mother or her father. You don't try and attack the whole family at one time, it's just too much. The same is with this. We're looking at one lineage at a time, and it's not intended to define who you are. So if you've been living your life knowing that you have some Native American roots, just because I tell you that your father's line isn't Native American, that doesn't mean you're not Native American. Identity is something that's unique to each of us, and this is a tool, just like census records, just like military records. It's a tool that you can use to help define who you are. Our database doesn't have every single population in it, but what we do have is a representative sample of the populations that contributed to the slave trade. And the amount of information varies by person. I was talking to Lori earlier, and on the maternal line, when it's not African, all we can tell you is whether it's European or Asian or Native American. We can't give you a tribe. We can't tell you a country. And then when it is African, we might tell you one country, we might tell you 4. It just depends on what we find. So, we've come to the big reveal of where Dr. Taylor and Lori Wilson are from. Does anybody have any ideas? Nobody wants to say. Would you all like to join me up here?